This is a lesson on when and where to use full stops. So we know that when we're reading and we come across a full stop, that is where we normally take a sort of strong pause or naturally kind of take a breath, because we know that those full stops kind of mark the end of a thought, and after that we'll start a new sentence. So full stops, of course, have to go at the end of sentences, and we need to think about that in our writing so that the person reading our writing knows where to pause, where to take a breath, where your ideas end. They're probably the most important piece of punctuation you can use, so it's very important that you understand where they need to go. So to talk about where those full stops go, we need to talk a little bit about how we know when a sentence has ended in our writing. So if we look at a piece of writing, let's say I went to the rugby on Saturday. The weather was sunny. The All Blacks won. I had a great time. At the moment, we have a lot of information in here, but absolutely no full stops. So if I was reading this, I would read it as I went to the rugby on Saturday, the weather was sunny, the All Blacks won, I had a great time. There's nowhere for me to pause or take a breath. There's nowhere for me to separate the ideas. So I need to figure out where those full stops need to go. I automatically know there's going to be one at the very end of my writing, because that is the end of my sentence, so I can put one there. And if we have a read through the rest, we'll see we need some more. So a full stop needs to go at the end of your sentence, and the sentence needs to include a full thought or idea. So if I come along here, I went to, I'm not going to put a full stop after that because it's only part of a thought, part of an idea. I need to find an entire complete thought or idea before I put a full stop. So I went to the rugby. I could put one here. I went to the rugby as a full thought, but I know I've got some extra information there because I've said on Saturday. I went to the rugby on Saturday. That is one complete thought, so I'm going to put a full stop after it. Come over to the next letter and of course make that a capital letter at the beginning of my next sentence. The weather was sunny. That's another complete thought, so I'm putting in a full stop and then coming over to the next letter and making it a capital. Or the All Blacks won. Another complete thought, putting in a full stop. That I is already a capital. I had a great time. So let's have a read of this now that we've got our full stops in there and see if it's easier to follow. I went to the rugby on Saturday. The weather was sunny. The All Blacks won. I had a great time. Now you can see with those full stops it makes it so much easier for the reader to understand what we have written. So let's have a look at some other times when we're using full stops. Sometimes at the end of a sentence we don't use a full stop. We might use a different end mark, like a question mark or an exclamation mark. Now, if we look at an example of that and talk about whether or not we need a full stop. Why is the sky blue? Question mark. Why is the sky blue? I don't need to add another full stop if I've ended my sentence with a question mark. As you can see in the question mark, there is already that full stop down there at the bottom. And to turn it into a question mark, this curvy line's been added at the top. So my full stop is already there as part of the question mark. I do not need another one on the end. And let's look at an example with an exclamation mark. It was fantastic. Exclamation mark. You can see again that that exclamation mark has got a full stop at the bottom of it. So I don't need to add another one on here. So that full stop is already there, and then this straight line at the top has been added on to show me that expression. But we do not need extra full stops for question marks or exclamation marks. But every sentence you write should finish with one of those end marks, either a full stop, an exclamation mark, or a question mark. So there are a couple of other things that you might find useful to know about when to use a full stop and where to put it. So if you're writing a sentence and it's ending with speech marks, such as she whispered, "I hope he can't hear us." This is the end of my sentence, so I need to put a full stop somewhere, but it's a little bit tricky trying to figure out for some people whether to put it before the speech marks or after the speech marks. So if you've got speech marks in a sentence, generally you will put a full stop before the speech marks, and the speech marks will go after your full stop. So if you're using speech marks or quotation marks, your full stop goes inside your quotation marks. If you are using brackets at the end of a sentence, it is a little bit different. So let's have a look at a sentence. I bought a present for you and 2 for me. The end of this bracket here is the end of my sentence, and I need to figure out where my full stop goes. Does it go on the inside of the bracket or the outside? The answer is, if you are using brackets, that full stop always goes on the outside of the brackets. So your bracket goes first and your full stop comes after. So the opposite to your speech marks. Speech marks, full stop comes before the speech marks, speech marks come afterwards. With brackets, the full stop comes at the end. So there's also one time where you don't need to use a full stop or a end mark, and that is if you are using titles or headings. So if you've got a title or heading at the top of your writing, you don't need a full stop after those. Here's an example. So at the top here, I've got my heading Maui's Dolphins, and you can see that there's no full stop needed at the end of that heading, but of course I am using a full stop in my writing. So hopefully you've got a bit of a better understanding about where and when to use those full stops. If you have any other questions, come and see me and we will work on those. Otherwise, have fun practicing that in your amazing writing.